So welcome to the first of our podcast series that we hope to continue on. This week we have myself, Takashi Gould, boys cross country and track and field coach at Skyline High School. We have also with us Coach Rowe, Yolanda Eccleston, who is a girls cross country and track and field coach at Skyline High School as well. And we have Carl Spina, who is the boys and girls cross country coach at Duane High School and works with all the distance runners year round. And the concept of this podcast here today is that we want to start interviewing and getting to know coaches around the state and hopefully even further out, with the hopes so that we just get to talk shop, track and field, cross country and program building, and get to know some of our other friends from other areas of the world, especially when it comes to the sport of track and cross, things we love. So in the first podcast here today, that we're going to be interviewing Rick Bauer, who is from Saugatuck High School. Rick just won the USTFCCCA Coach of the Year for the state of Michigan as the boys' coach. Congratulations, Coach Rick. That's absolutely awesome.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so
really
we're going to kind of...
It's more the kids award because I'm kind of useless for the most part. They do...
No. Well, you're doing something right, absolutely, because you guys are in a smaller school, a Division IV school, and I think you said you had like 250, 300 kids in the school, and you have continued success. So you guys are doing something right over there. So
yeah, I have really good assistants. That's probably the biggest thing. And then very supportive administrators.
That's pretty awesome. A good help's hard to find, so man, you better keep them on. Give them a pay bump.
Well, if I get paid, that would be a pay bump. So that's right. So get started there.
Holy shit. So that's some hard-working, tireless, and selfless people you got around you. That's always the recipe for awesome.
Yeah, it's mostly just people who have a big-time passion for high school sports and track and cross country specifically, and we do get a little bit of money, but when we broke it down to what we're making per hour, it's something like when you throw in gas and everything, we're probably making negative 5 cents an hour. So it's not. The crazy thing in our community is they make assumptions that if we win, we get a bonus. I always say, man, I got to talk to the AD about that one. Where's my bonuses?
All right,
well,
Rick.
So why don't you tell us a bit about how you ended up teaching and coaching in Saugatuck?
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy thing. My wife and I got married right out of college. We were looking for jobs, and I was originally a phys ed major, earth science minor, meaning no jobs available for a guy like me. So I was just going to follow my wife wherever she could find a job, and she interviewed at Bangor, and thank God she didn't get the job. No offense to Bangor, but Saugatuck is definitely a better place to be. She got offered a half-time position at Saugatuck, and then was actually offered a full-time position at Okemos. But after going to Saugatuck, she really liked it, and I said, well, why don't you call the people at Saugatuck and say, look, they're offering me full-time, you're offering me half-time. As long as you tell me that the full-time is sometime going to be available, we'll stay in Saugatuck. And she called him. 15 minutes later, he called back and said, the position is now full-time. So she ended up in Saugatuck, and I taught at Black River for 1 year, where I was a special ed aide.
So, Rick, you were telling us about the different coaching influences you had there.
Yeah, like I said, my dad, basically telling kids that you love them and meaning it, and doing whatever you can to help them out, buying them shoes, getting them food, driving them places if they need it. That was my dad. Coach Fuller at Central, getting to know you as a person, running the secondary, and if you get people, if you get people to trust you and you treat them like they're more than just runners, people, they'll do a lot for you. I can't think of how many times I did yard work around his house, And I don't know that I would do that just for any coach, but I did it for him because, he basically was there for me. When I got mono and my spleen was ready to rupture, right after the championship, my fifth year, he's the one who picked me up and drove me to the hospital. He's also the one who made fun of me the entire time I was in the hospital bed, and would torment me with the fact that they were going to have to give me a catheter, knowing that I was terrified of a 2-centimeter tube getting entered into my urethra. It did not seem like a pleasant thing to me, but he loved making fun of me. He loved making fun of me when they said, if you pee, you don't have to do it. And he knew that I couldn't pee with people in the room, and he wouldn't leave the room, and he kept yelling at me to do it. And that's the kind of, that's sort of the way I am too. You mess with kids, you punk them, and they end up loving you for it. And then the other one was Tobin Jones, who was my coach for the last 6 months of my high school career. Just really taught me about running and showed me how passionate he was about it, and it would fire me up that he was that passionate about it. So I try to bring that to every practice where I'm excited that we're doing this. We get to, people think it's like a hassle, but I'm like, we get to go run, 12 miles today. Not everybody's getting to do this. We get to do it, and we get to do it with a big group because you're all on board. When I was in high school, I was the only one doing it. It was really hard to be motivated. You're the only one, going out for a run. And it's freaking, 20 degrees out and freezing rain. You don't want to do it, but when you got a group of guys, that's kind of what I learned through college, was when you got a group of guys and they're depending on you to be there, it's really easy. So for me, I try to take that same things I learned from those coaches, that mentality, and bring it to my team. And then, of course, my wife is another huge, huge influence in me, because she had a very different high school experience. She was on a state championship team. She was around a culture of winning, and she brings that to the table. And she also levels me out. She makes me be more disciplined than I want to be. And so those four really had the big impact on me in making our program what it is, I guess.
So you mentioned a couple of times about coaching with your wife. Can you talk about how that dynamic works and how that structure looks between both programs? And do you guys share responsibilities, or do you kind of delegate different things, or just how does that model look?
For us, it's just like this free-flowing thing where she's like a type A personality. Everything has to be like mapped out, set out, and I'm not that way. Like, I will change things on the fly. But she does a lot of like what people wouldn't really expect, I think. She does a lot of like our strength and conditioning stuff. Like, she's the one who does all of our core work. She's the one who makes us go in the weight room. She will not bend on that. If we've been there for 2.5 hours and we still have to lift, she's like, tough crap. The football team is here for 3.5 hours. We're going to be here for 3.5 hours. We got to get this done. That's just the way it is. And so she's big at keeping me and keeping the kids accountable. Because I'll tell you, there's a lot of days I'm like, let's just go. I got to get out of here. I'm done. And she's big about that. And then it always seems like when I'm in a bad mood, she balances me out, and she'll be in a good mood. And when she's in a bad mood and I'm in a good mood, there's rarely a time when the kids don't have somebody to go to hear something positive, because I think they need that.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of how that works. She does, like, I write a lot of the workouts up, but she does a lot of the implementing what we're doing. I do a lot of the messing around with kids, picking on and making fun of them. I'll critique what they're doing in a race or something afterwards, but she does that too. And I try to leave her girls alone and let her do most of that unless she asks me. And she does the same with the boys. We both coach them, but at the same time, there's like a little bit of a separation as far as if she has a strategy and she wants to implement it with it, I don't say a word. She does it, and the same happens with me. But we may have those conversations at home, like more often than not, she asks me, "What the hell are you thinking?" And sometimes she's absolutely right. I'm an idiot, and but that's how that works really for us. I don't know how, like Carl, you do both programs. I don't know how you do it.
I'm learning,
especially at a school your size. That would just kill me. It's rough. If I didn't have my wife, we would not be very good. I can tell you. She's the big difference maker for me.
So, how many do you guys have? A lot of assistant coaches between programs, or is it just you and her, or how does that work? And then, like with the assistant coaches, how do they kind of fit in the mold dealing with a kind of a husband-wife tandem?
In cross, we don't have any assistant coaches. We have a middle school coach, and he's also our pole vault and throws coach in the spring. And we kind of let him do his thing. The only thing we ask him is and that he doesn't like make this something they don't want to do. That if he can just keep them interested and they can come out, we'll get them to do the hard stuff later. Just make it fun for them, And every once in a while, you get that zealous parent or kid who wants to run like the high schoolers, and they get really annoyed that they're playing games and that they're not doing real workouts or as they feel real workouts.
Right.
But there's a lot of time. I've had a lot of really good kids that didn't break 6 minutes in middle school. It's like they'll be fine. You just got to keep them here. And you end up losing more when you have like that crazy middle school coach, at least for us, who's trying to get them to do, mile repeats and things. And they're just like, I have no interest in this. Running sucks. This sucks. This is not fun.
Wow.
So that's really all we have. Right? There's three of us. George, Ange, and I.
So last year you had about 24 boys and I think about 24 girls out running cross country in Saugatuck. And given there are about 250 kids at your high school, that's a huge number of kids.
Yeah.
How does that compare to other D4 programs? Like, are you guys the largest, like very large?
Yeah, I would say. Obviously our track program is bigger. We had between the boys and girls this year in track, we had like close to 85 kids out. So that's over 25% of the school is pretty much on the track team, which really helps. Why our numbers were so big last year is we had 13 juniors, and then we had a big freshman class. We didn't have a single senior last year, and then we had like 2 sophomores. And basically what happens in Saugatuck with our numbers is there's this ebb and flow of there'll be a big class where a lot of kids want to run. And then there's always, every 4 years, we have like this, no kid comes out. It's happened to me like 3 times now where not a single kid comes out.
Wow.
And this is going to sound terrible, but when the classes that have kids that run cross country in them, academically usually are better, socially are better. The environment in the school is so much nicer when there's a bunch of cross kids in a class. When there aren't, they tend to be like, I hate to say it, there's no other way to say it, but almost sociopathic, where that's like they're into drinking, they're into drugs, they're into messing, like being just deviant and somewhat evil. And then we get this backlash. People think when you win, everybody wants to be a part of it. No, there's definitely like, we're tired of you. We're tired of hearing about you. And so we're going to do the exact opposite.
Gotcha.
And so we know, like, this year I don't have a single freshman coming out. It's to be expected. Maybe the next year we'll have a bunch. I know I have one really good 8th grader, so I know that next year, even though we lose all these seniors, we're still going to be really good. We just won't have the numbers that we have right now.
Right.
And I never really worry about, like, are we going to have enough? because when you have 100, like right now, I think we have 140 some boys out in our school, we're going to be able to get 5 kids to come out and field the team, and we'll be all right. I mean, now we're up in D3, it's a little bit harder, but I mean, one year I had 7 guys on the team, 2 guys got hurt right before regionals, and another kid, he quit like 3 times on me. I told him if he quit one more time, he was done. He did. He wanted to come back. I said, no, we only have 4 guys for our regional meet. And we talked the soccer player into coming out, and he ended up qualifying for state finals. The kid ended up running like 18:30, which isn't very good, but for a kid who's never run before, you know, that's pretty decent. And in Division 4, that'll get you by.
That's a nice pickup right there.
And then the kid never came back out for cross again. You know, went to state finals. He was a freshman. Went to state finals. Ended up one of the top 10 freshmen at state finals that day. It's like, you have a real future in this. Kept playing soccer. I think we've won more state championships than the soccer team has won games in that kid's career, which is like crazy. But,
so that kid ran 2 races, a regional championship and a state championship, and packed his bag and went home.
And he did run a conference championship too. He came out for one. It was like we had got rained out, so the week of regionals there was a meet that he got to run in.
Nice. He's got a good history.
And he's talented. Yeah. Superintendent's son. Amazing. He called me actually.
Wow.
Thanks.
Nice.
Crazy. So, Coach, you talked a little bit about, like, you know, like you're saying, with the types of kids that come out, you know, and maybe it's the structured environment that you have there, or, you know, maybe it's part of the type of kids that are more self-motivated that end up taking things like distance running and, you know, some of these, like, more mentally brutal sports. Is that something that, like, you know, something you noticed at an early age? Like you said, you have your middle school program and your middle school coach. Do you guys work on looking at kids even further down? Like, you know, we see a lot of teams now, like they're you know, like K-6 programs, you know, for running.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something that you see even earlier on, and you want to help promote that.
I would love to, but it's so hard with what we already do. I mean, you guys all know this is like something. It's not like we show up on August 10th and then we're done November 4th kind of job. That's not how it is. It's year round. You're doing stuff, whether you're with the kids or not. There's always things you're doing, and I just don't. And I'm a special ed teacher, so I have like very little time to do anything other than what I'm already doing. When you throw family and other things in, so we don't have a K-6 program. There's like girls on the run and stuff, but it really, I'm not sure how we keep getting kids to come out, because they have soccer, they have baseball, they have football, they have all these things they get to do from that time on. And what generally happens for us is we get one kid whose then friends want to come out because they're out. Right. And then, or they see the writing on the wall, like, hey, I'm not going to get to play, or I'm not going to be very good. I don't recruit. That's the other thing. I don't go up to kids in the hallway and say, you should come out. That's not something I do, because I feel like this is really hard. I don't want to lie to some kid and say, you should come out, you're going to be good, and then have him hate it and be like, that guy's a liar. So I don't do it. The kids do the recruiting, and my wife gets every single kid, or she used to, gets every single kid as a Spanish teacher in the district, and so she talks about cross country all the time. So a lot will come out because of that. You know, and like we try. The thing I try to do is I don't move in and stuff. I don't come in and like talk about it and do that. I let the kids do all that. I'm not a big look at us, look at me kind of guy. That's not. I don't do that. It kind of is embarrassing almost to do that. So I mean, I don't really look for definitely a specific kid. I just know when I get them. Like, you know, the kids that can be pushed and can be molded into like, for us, team is a big thing. Like, a lot of people think this is an individual sport. I hear that all the time. And it's, for us, it's not. Everything is always about team. How are you going to help the team? So, like we had that really good kid, Corey Gord, as a freshman last year, from 16 off of 20 to 25 miles a week. And I've got another kid on our team, Christian Post, who is like an 18 flat kid. Well, those two trained together every single day. Christian basically made sure that he got through his runs. Because we run out of the state park, it's easy to get lost. He ran with him every day. That was his job. If you're going to run with Corey, make sure he gets what he has to get done. That's how you can help the team. Because you're not going to run to the state finals. To be quite honest, it's never going to happen for you, not on this team right now. But you can still help the team by, making sure Corey gets through his everyday run. By talking to Corey and making sure that he's got everything that he needs, because he is a freshman, so he might forget things. He might not, be prepared. So that's a lot of what we do, is be a part of the team. And when we find kids that can be like team players and not have to be the star, we know we got something good.
So you kind of mentioned there that you really have a hands-off approach to recruiting, especially within the building.
Yep.
But you also still, like Carl mentioned earlier, you got a really high ratio of kids participating versus the population of the school. What do you think? Why do you think kids are coming out to run for you guys? Like, what is the enticement behind it? How do you get them? And then, like you also touched on, like, how do you get them to buy in? Like, once they're there, it's one thing to get them there. It's another thing to get them to buy in. Like, you just told a great story about how you had a kid who's, still figuring things out, but he understands his role is to kind of monitor this other one and kind of bring them along. How do you get kids to buy in and understand their role and understand that bigger fit within what I call an individualized team sport?
Okay. Well, I always talk about you've got to learn, no matter what in life, to be a part of something bigger than you. And I've had really good runners that didn't give a shit about the team. Sorry, but they didn't, and that's fine, because them running good helps the team. But they didn't help the team enough. They didn't help change the culture because they only cared about themselves. And so, by me always talking about team, like, I know a lot of people do a lot of individual stuff with kids, athlete of the meet and stuff, and we've done that too. But to me, that's not important. It's how the team did. Because I always talk to them. We lost the state championship a few years ago by 4 points. And it's like, that's a team effort. Because that was less than 4 sections. Because we broke it down. What place were we in at the mile? Well, we were in like 4th as a team. At 2 miles, we were winning by quite a bit. At 3 miles, we were winning. We lost in the last 1/10. And each guy had somebody within 1 second of them. So we could have easily won. Yeah, our number one guy was hurt, but we could have won if everybody would have been thinking more about the team than themselves. Because I don't care who you are, if you win a team state championship, the next question would be, well, what did you run? But the most important thing is that you won. So I don't care if you have a great race or not. You just have to do what it takes for the team to win. And last year, those guys win, they scored 51 points or whatever, and they were not happy because they had a goal of scoring under 30 points, and they didn't do it because, a couple guys had bad races and things happen. But, it's all about the team. And a perfect example of that and why we're successful right now is Zach Pettingill was our number one guy last year all across season. But he's already said, I know Corey's going to beat me. I'm not going to make it easy on him. But if he beats me, we're going to be a lot better. And so I'm good with that. I think that's pretty big for a high school kid to say something like that.
Absolutely.
They want to be number one. That's important. That's their identity. Number one on the team. Well, it doesn't matter if you're number one and you're not you're not a very good team. And that's the other thing. I'll talk to other kids from other sports. Like I asked some of the soccer players once. They wanted one of my guys to come out and dual sport soccer, and I was like, well, I don't care. It's up to him. That's not my decision. But let me ask you this: Would you want to be on a state championship team or a team that struggles to win a game? I mean, quite honestly, what would you rather do if you had that opportunity? And he's like, well, I'd rather have fun and play a game. I said, okay, well, let's talk about terms that you understand. Basketball. Would you rather be on, the national championship team, but be a bench player, maybe only get to sniff the court a couple of minutes a game? Or would you rather be the star on a team that doesn't even make the tournament, isn't very good in their league, has a terrible record? And when a couple of them said that they'd rather be the star, I said, well, that's the difference between you and me. I would never want to be on a terrible team, even if I was the star. I would rather be a part of something great and not be in the limelight than be in the limelight and be a part of something that's not very good. And so my kids kind of get that. They understand that mentality. I mean, I got kids that are working really, really hard right now, but they're going to be sub 17-minute kids, and they're not going to run varsity for us. But they keep working hard because they understand something could happen, and I'm going to have to be ready for the team.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that this is actually the ultimate team sport when it's done right. You have the option for it to be an individual sport, and that is a nice thing. If you don't have a good team, you can always just worry about yourself, and that is great. But when you have the horses and you have the people around you, I played other ball sports my whole life. I didn't come to running until very late in high school, not until I was a junior did I really start running. I didn't run track until I was a junior. And I find that cross country, like when I was in college, in the ways that my team is much more of a team sport than basketball was, and even baseball was, because like in baseball and basketball, you still have all these individual numbers that seem to be more important to a lot of people than did your team win or not. I hear that all the time. Well, how many points did you score? Before they asked if they even won the game, how many points did you score? And maybe that's the way the culture on that team is. I don't know. But to me, that's insignificant, how many points you scored. Did your team win? What did you do to help them win? That's what's important.
All right, that was a lot of great info, Coach. I appreciate it. That's a lot of good insight into your program. I'm going to skip what we had originally planned for our next question because I think you already spoke about how you promote the sport in your school. It's kind of a unique take. But I wanted to ask about the Nike, Duane, Raffin, Holly invite last year because I was looking at some results from last year, and you guys moved all the way up to the D1 race. I thought that was pretty impressive, and I don't remember what place you guys were, but you did pretty well. And I was wondering, how did you make that decision? And is that something you want to repeat? Was that just a once in a lifetime thing?
Yeah.
Or?
No, for us, it really came down to we knew we were going to be really good last year, and we'd run in the other races the 2 previous years that we've gone tonight to the Duane Raffin Holly invite, and I said to the guys, we could go and we could run Division 4 or whatever, and you guys are gonna clean up and win, and that's fine. But understand, there's not going to be anybody for you top guys to really race. We're going all the way to Holly. We're staying in their gym. Do you guys want to go and try to run fast? Because looking at the rest of our schedule, this would be the only chance we really have to run really fast against some big schools. And they had been talking about how they wanted to go and run at like D2 national stuff and run against some other teams. And I thought, well, if that's something you guys want to do, you're going to have to learn how to run in a crowd. Because right now you never have to do that. And there's a big difference being in the top 15 to 20 than when you're in 50th place.
Right.
Like one of my former athletes used to say all the time, the guys at the front of the pack are really nice. The guys in the middle and back are not. They push, they hit, they kick, they'll try to push you into a tree. And they needed to know what that was like, because when we get to state finals, you might not be in the top 10. And it turned out they were. But getting them used to that different style of racing. And then we added some other ones where we were running against bigger schools. I just wanted them to see, how racing really is. That you don't just get to run out front and beat everybody all the time. That you're going to get pushed around. This can be very physical. And they wanted a chance to see where they stacked up. And we're going to go there again this year. We're going to run in the D1 race. And I kind of left that up to them, and they all were like, we want to run D1. And if we get beat, so be it. But they actually thought they were going to win. And they were some very angry young men after that race. And if you look 1 through 4, we were right there. I mean, we weren't going to win, but we were, top 3, and then our 5th man had a bad day. And so, they want to go back. A big thing that they talk about is they want to go back and try to beat all the D1 schools there. We go there mostly because, Richie was a senior when I was a freshman, and we're like best friends, and he puts us up in the gym, and they treat us real nice. And people always say, why don't you go to Michigan State? And Michigan State's a heck of a lot more expensive. And the experience when we used to go there compared to the experience at Holly was, without a question, Holly did so well. Their award ceremony is top notch. The course is great. Like when we were at Michigan State, we didn't even know where the award stand was. And when we finally got there, there was like nobody there watching kids get medals and stuff. It was like, this is not for me. I mean, I understand it's a great course, a lot of great competition, but for us, we can go to Nike, or it's not Nike anymore because Nike's not going to be their sponsor, but a Holly invite and run against D1 schools. And I like it because that's where our regional course was when I was in high school, and I can talk trash to kids who don't run faster than I do now.
Nice. So it was really kind of a decision like to prep for the state meet and other big race opportunities ahead of the boys?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I just think it's good for them, if you're a small school, to see how the other half lives for a change. And because you can start thinking you're really good and go, guys, you're really not that good. I mean, you're good for schools of, 350 and under. Yeah, you're really good. But there are other schools in this state that would kick the crap out of you, and you need to see that. And, they know that, but it's different when you actually experience it. And they needed to be humbled a bit. It's hard when they were that, when they're that good, what are you going to do? They're not dumb. It's not like when we were in high school and there wasn't, access to all this information.
Right.
I can't lie to them and tell them, guys aren't going to win this meet. They know. Right. They're on athletic.net more than I am. And they're like, the hell we're not going to win this meet. 3 of us could decide not to run and we'd still win this meet. So, humbling them is another thing. Keeping them hungry and saying, well, you're good, but could you beat, now, all I have to talk to them about is Fremont. Just say, Fremont would destroy you, and did, whenever we raced. So if you guys don't want to work and you want Fremont to, whoop all over you next time we see them, because they're, or Lansing Catholic, for crying out loud. That's a big one now. It's like, I'm telling them Lansing Catholic's going to just run all over you guys. Let's just be serious. They're the Division III state champs. We might be going to Division III, but we're not the state champs anymore. They are. So they're going to kick your ass if you don't start working harder. And that usually works. That's enough to get them motivated.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
No problem. Yeah, that was great. So earlier you mentioned a couple times that you had some soccer kids kind of jump in and fill in. I know with my experience and in Ann Arbor schools, and Takashi knows this, and I'm sure Carl knows this as well. One of the biggest things that we have is that our population is spread out over countless amount of sports. I want to think the actual number at Skyline is like 32 varsity sports that are completely offered. How many sports are offered, for kids at Saugatuck?
Well, in the fall we have football, soccer, cross country, volleyball, but then you're always also fighting like basketball kids. I don't know if it's this way for you guys, but everybody's going Division I basketball scholarship. Whether you're 5'4" or not, you are getting a full ride. And that is that's probably worse than any other sport for us. It's like AAU basketball.
Yeah.
That's the worst. And, our soccer team, they have never been very good. And it's always like, we're going to be good. I remember I had a kid not come out for me once because he said, I want to be a part of the first win at Saugatuck in soccer. I was like, really? That's your motivation? You want to win a game?
Wow.
We want to win a championship, and you could be a part of that. But okay, whatever floats your boat, man. And so that is hard because there was a number that our AD gave us that I think over 85% of the kids at Saugatuck competed in athletics this year.
Wow.
In at least one. Wow. So that's really great. And then if they weren't in that, they were probably in band. Band is probably the other thing. I don't know if this is a problem for you guys at big schools, but band, I wouldn't say it's a problem, but it is. They have they're huge. Everybody is in band in Saugatuck, and it's a huge time commitment. So that's one where we share kids a lot. I don't really share soccer kids very often. That's only once, and this year we might have another one. Doesn't really happen.
Well, I know in Ann Arbor it's a bit of a challenge for us in Ann Arbor because just like you said with the band, our band is large, very large, Skyline as well. And the big challenge that Takashi and I always go through is that the music program in Ann Arbor is considered part of the curriculum. So if there's ever any sort of a conflict or anything like that, music wins, no questions asked. And then that really, for us in cross country, that affects us. We try to do cross country camp, and they have their band camp. Or we have a meet this day. Well, they've got a performance that day, and then they've got this mandatory practice and that mandatory practice. So I definitely know what you mean when it comes to that. It's a bit of a challenge.
That happened to us too. It's a grade, and the thing that I don't like about the band is if you do something dumb as an athlete, you can't compete.
Right.
You do bad in school, you can't compete. I feel like bands should be treated the same way, but it's not. Those kids can fail a bunch of classes and still get to compete in the competition. And I think that's wrong. I mean, it's a grade, but it's also, it's a motivator for, if you told some of those kids you don't get to go to a festival, they would start doing stuff in class.
Yeah.
But they get to go regardless. And it's I'm not everybody should be treated the same because they shouldn't. But it is like a sport. And they put in as much time as a sport. And if they're gonna, if my kids have to have some kind of academic standard that they have to meet, then they should too. And that's the one that drives the kids. But our band director's pretty great. He's, we had it out one time where we had to go to regionals the next day, or it was on a Saturday, and they had made the playoffs for the first time in football in a long time, and they had to go to Ravenna for a playoff game, and it was going to pour. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Those cross kids, they got a big race. We have a chance to win a regional championship, which we hadn't done at that point yet. They're going to be out in the rain and cold all night. That's ridiculous. You wouldn't make a football player do that. And, of course, I lost that argument. They made him go anyway. Yeah. But, and it was but he's great. He brings the band to our regional meet. They play the national anthem for us, and they play a bunch of songs for running. I mean, not too many schools, especially small schools, are people willing to do that. And that's, one of the things that's great about Saugatuck is there is a lot of support for us, more than it used to be anyway.
So when you're having these kids that are doing other sports or participating in music or an after-school club, how do you go about managing their time, trying to fix that in with, making sure they're meeting their training demands, but also meeting their demands with this club or with this other sport or, however that looks?
Well, really that happens a lot for us in track. And the way I do it, track, I feel like a lot of times you're going to cut your own throat if you decide you're not going to do the stuff. So that's fine. And I'm not going to hold your hand. But what I do is, like Blake done, he and his brother and any other baseball player, they come in the morning at 6 in the morning, and they do a workout. And I used to come in every morning and sit there and watch them and go through it. But I'm not a morning person, and in the spring of track season, I'm already not getting enough sleep. So with Blake, he texts me the night before. I give him the workout. He kind of knows how I operate in my lingo. And so this is what it is. you're in charge, make sure they get this done, and then they do it. And then if something comes up and they can or whatever, I'm pretty flexible, and I try to work with the other coaches. And the way I feel about like that kind of stuff is I know we're going to be successful. And so I don't mind sharing kids, because I think eventually, once they start seeing the light and realizing where the success is happening, they're going to just want to come to track anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's where they're going to have the success. You know, and I've got kids that try to do baseball and track, and they want to like skimp on track all the time. That's fine. I remember that when it comes to regionals and who's going to run on a relay that we're pretty sure is going to score at state finals, you ain't going to be it, because you never showed up. And I don't care if you're faster than somebody else on the team. They're here every day. I'm going to reward those that come. And that's kind of how I deal with that. And that's definitely how my wife deals with that.
So along those same lines, what type of, do you guys run into sports specialization issues or kids that are participating in club sports? I know at Skyline, I've been seeing that a lot lately. I started out at Pioneer before I moved over to Skyline. And just over my 13, 14 years, I've seen this grow a lot. So now we've got a lot of kids that are just, well, I'm specializing in this, and I'm going to do that. And even from a structural perspective in our school, we now have a weightlifting coach who I think kind of aids in the sports specialization by providing off-season workouts for one particular sport. Do you guys have a lot of that club sport influence where you just get a kid that says, hey, I'm playing soccer year-round, and I've sold on that bag of goods that I'm going to be the greatest soccer player ever, and I got to play club, I got to do that?
Yeah, it's more with basketball. Like our girls basketball coach runs an AAU program, and right there, I think the MHSA should step in and say, if you're a high school coach, you can't run an AAU program. There's a conflict of interest, because they're always talking about how they want kids to diversify and do multiple things, but then they allow stuff like that to happen. So basketball's the big one. Volleyball's the next big one for us. We're like, I'm going to play in the spring. I'm going to do club volleyball and do what you want. But I kind of have a hard time getting really all over them, because as a distance coach, I kind of do the same thing. I mean, think about it. We want them to run year round.
Yeah.
Like I don't. If a kid wants to play basketball and stuff, they go ahead and do it. And I just tell them, like, if you want to have a chance to have a good spring, though, outside of practice, you're going to have to put in some miles. You're going to have to run a minimum of 20 to 30 minutes a day. If you can just do that on top of your basketball practice, it'd be good. And I used to have 3 or 4 kids that would do that. They'd get out there and run, and they'd be texting me at like midnight, because that's when they got a chance to get their run in, and it's like, this is crazy, but that's what they chose to do. But and and it's hard, because I know, and maybe you do too with yours, like I look at certain kids and I go, I know you're going to be a good runner. You're going to do really well. I know you're not going anywhere in volleyball or basketball. I don't care what they're selling you. Not going to happen. It just isn't. But you could be in this. And it's really hard. Like, and I don't really say much to kids. I kind of just let them go, and I shake my head, and they see me working every day. They see me out there running with the kids every day. So, I kind of hope that attracts them. Like, oh, this guy's going to be there every day doing crazy stuff. And maybe they'll come out for that. But yeah, the specialization, it's not, I don't think it's good, but I also ask kids to do it. So it's hard. I mean, I'm asking kids to run year round. Now the sprinters, I don't, but I'm even with them. I'm trying to convince them to come out for cross. And I know a lot of people are like, well, why are you doing that? Well, if they don't, they end up gaining a bunch of weight. And by the time, it's not good weight. And by the time I get them in shape, the season's over in track. It's like, if you could come to me already in shape, this would be nice. Like, we can, it's hard to get, especially the older boys and girls, to get them to drop weight. They do it real quick when they're freshmen, sophomores, but when they're juniors and seniors, sometimes they hold on to it a bit longer. And then it changes everything, and it makes hurdling harder, makes everything that much harder when you're got a bunch of cellulite on your legs.
Absolutely.
So, Coach, I'm kind of going to try and tie this in a little bit back into looking at a few other things, sir, and particularly in looking as we're going into cross season here. And we talked about you and your wife coaching together. You get a lot of hands-on stuff with the guys program, girls program. You do everything together. And this is largely based off of last year's result. I'm looking at, one team in particular, someone like Harbor Springs, where they finished third and second at the D4 state finals. You guys are first and third. And it might not even be Harbor Springs, but like, do you guys have like fun rivalries that you look forward to? And like, this is something like you have friends or other coaches in D4 that you always get to kind of your teams bang. You get to kind of look forward to those games.
Yeah, well, with Harbor Springs, it's hard because they hide so much that they don't put anything on A-net. And so, like, we knew going in that their girls were going to be good. And it was like, but we thought we might, our girls could at least, get them and get second. And we were 5 points short, and that was really, really tough. And their boys are always good. They were like, as I was starting to coach and as my wife and I were doing this, Harbor Springs was one of those programs we looked at and said, man, we gotta be like that someday. That's how we want to be. There's not a whole lot of teams where the boys and girls are good at the same time a lot, but they're one of those teams that always does. The Klauses, it's like, it's hard for me to like people I'm coaching against because I still take the same attitude I had as an athlete, where it's like, I don't like you if I'm competing against you. I can't be friends with you if I'm competing against you. I've kind of lost that a little bit, but for the longest time I wouldn't talk to them, and it's just like kind of, not that I hated them, but I wanted to beat them so bad, and they would kick the crap out of us. But they were a program we looked at. Another one is obviously Concord on the boys' side. Like, that was a huge hurdle for us to overcome, trying to beat them. It was like every year, freaking guys were so dang good. And then when Jur moved over there, Jur is, it's interesting because Gene and I went to school together at Central, Gene LeBron. And Jur, the first time I met him was like at an indoor meet. He asked me if I wanted to run the indoor state meet, and I didn't even know anything about track at the time. It was like the second meet I'd ever run. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And he was just this, like, I don't know, you guys have met Jur. He's like this larger than life kind of guy. Like, he just talks so damn fast, and I don't know. But Jur would always, when he was at Albion, would call me and tell me about how many fast sprinters he had, because when I first started coaching, I hated sprints. I thought there was way too many sprints in track and field, and we'd go back and forth on how we should get rid of the 4x2 and bring in a DNMAR, and he would argue with me that sprinting is really track and distance running isn't. And so we'd go back and forth, and so when he was at Albion and we finally won our first title, I beat Jur. Our teams beat Jur, and it was insane. That was like something I never thought would happen, and it was crazy because we were a distance school beating the sprint school, and beating Jur was very sweet. But then when he went over to Concord and brought all those sprinters with them, it cost us a title the next year because we called them Convian or Albacord, because it was basically an all-star team of distance runners and sprinters, and they stole a state championship from us. If they could have just kept their school open at Albion, I think we'd have won that year. But that's always a rivalry, because that guy talks so much trash to me. My goodness. Every time I see him. Last year at state finals, in fact, he was telling me how they were going to kick the crap out of us in track, and they were going to score over 80 points, and I was just like, are you insane? Usually I don't say anything to him, but I think that day I got a little lippy with him. And, that's one I always look forward to. And then, I love running against Tim and these guys. They're just always so dang good. Lansing Catholic is, they're always going to bring a good race. And then the other one we look forward to running against, even though we weren't in the same division, but we are now, is Benzie Central, because the Kellys do just such a great job over there, and that's one of those programs where, like, guys, if you can be anywhere near them, we're doing all right, because they're always so darn good over there. So those are, off the top of my head, those are the ones. And we've had little flare ups in our league where there's teams that get good and we want to beat them. And used to be Bangor, who didn't hire my wife, and we finally beat them. And then it was Watervliet for the longest time. And right now our league's down a little bit, so there's not really much of a rivalry there. But those are, I guess those would be the. And whenever we can run against the Holly boys with Richie, we see him at camp, and then we compare times all the time. Those are always fun too, because Richie likes to talk a lot of crap to me too. And then Gene doesn't coach the boys, so, which is good, because I think we might not be friends if he coached the boys, because we'd be talking a lot of smack to each other.
Nice. That's funny. I can relate to that, because Takashi and I are barely friends now that he's coaching the boys at Skyline, right? So, Coach, we appreciate you giving us an hour of your time today and sharing your thoughts on these things, giving us some insight into your program up at Saugatuck. We really appreciate you being willing to open up the doors and letting us know what you're doing up there. So thank you very much. And before we go, anything else you want to share out, or is this adios, mi amigos?
No, not really. Thanks a lot. Sorry that I have to be a rambler. I do that. Sorry. Hopefully you can edit some of that stuff down.
No problem. It was great. We learned a lot. It's always good to see inside the brains of a successful coach. We appreciate your time.